Hello, welcome back. My name is Darren Thomas, and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to be looking at some of the customization features, if you will, of Bokeh, focusing primarily on the tools feature and the tooltips feature when you're making data visualizations with Bokeh. So let's go ahead and see what we can learn. All right, so we got everything set up here nice and neat. And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to load up our libraries so that you can see what we're going to do. And we're going to go through this step by step. So here we go. So here are the libraries that we need. Of course, we're going to need PyDataset because that's where our data set is going to come from. And we're going to import data, of course. And then we have two more libraries, our functions that we're going to use. Bokeh.plotting, we're going to import figure. That's to make our actual axes and our actual plot. And then Bokeh.io, that's for the output and for showing the actual visualization. So we're going to go ahead and run these. Very, very simple. And now we're just going to load our data. And so right here, we're going to be using the Duncan dataset from PyDataset. It's just a little dummy data set that has some occupations and they kind of rate their prestige, income, education level, etc. So let's just take a look at that. So here we go. You can see that for yourself. And of course, this is just a little snapshot of it, not the whole thing. So we got about here 5 rows of data so far, and you can see the information for itself. Now, what we're going to do is before we customize the actual settings of the tools, what we're going to do is we're going to see what it looks like by default. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And so I'm going to paste this right here. If you've been watching our videos, this is all review of things we've learned in the past. So I create my figure right here where I create my label for my X and my Y axis. That's the first thing I do. And then in the next line of code, I actually set up my actual data points here. So I'm making a scatter plot where I'm plotting income and prestige on the 2 axes. And then the last 2 lines of code right here is just for the output. So when I do this, I'll get a nice, beautiful little plot. You can see that right there for yourself. Nice and beautiful. This is default. I mean, there's lots of things we could do to make this better. We can make the dots bigger, but we're not going to waste our time with that. We're going to stay focused. Now, oh wait, let me go back. So right now, we're going to be manipulating these buttons right here on the right-hand side. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, and we're going to change these. I've talked about what these different buttons do in the past. So, we have zoom and we have pan, we have wheel zoom. You can save, reset this, and also, of course, you can look at tools or go to the website. That's what that's for. And so right now we have 7, but we can, of course, adjust this. So let me go ahead and show you how that works. And so I'm right here under custom settings for the graph. Now, all this code down here is mostly the same, but we made a little list right here at the top called tools. And inside we have the names of the different actual tools we want to use. So lasso select, wheel zoom, reset, and save. That's what we're going to use. And one more thing that we have to change is in our figure. So we have right here a little argument here called tools. And we put the name of our object called tools as well. And that's the only change. So what's going to happen is that instead of having 7 options, we should have 5, I believe. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And you can see right there. Here's the previous one. You can see we have 7 right here. And then in our new one, we only have 5. And so we're able to reduce it. So you can see for yourself. I believe this one at the top is here by default. It kind of advertises Bokeh. I may be wrong about that. But you can see we're able to reduce the number of tools that were available. And that's one of the things that you could take advantage of as you are developing your plots. And so you can see how you can do this. And so you can make up a blank list and get rid of all of them if you so desire. Like, for example, if you want to release a particular plot, but you don't want people to play with it, you can remove all of them if you so desire. All right. So we're going to go down here and we're going to move on to a slightly different approach, and that's the hover tool. The hover tool allows you to, when you move your mouse over the actual visualization, it'll pull up data about individual data points. Now this sounds a little abstract right now, so we're gonna, of course, run this. So here's the code. One of the things we do here is we're going to load another function here called column data source. This sets up the data to be in a native data structure unique to Bokeh. You don't necessarily have to do this for this particular example, but we're just exposing you to the different tools. So I take my data set that I labeled DF, in case you forgot, and I run it through this function. And so I call it now source. And so next, I have my object here called Tooltips. And so now notice how I have my list here, but inside the list, I have several tuples. So education, that's like the name of it. So in other words, when I hover over it, I'm going to see education. And then this @education sign right here is telling the Python to pull the data specific to the column education. Again, this will make more sense in a second. Then I have position, that goes by the column type, and then I have income go by income. Now, in case you're a little confused, let's go back up here, and you can see I have income, education, and prestige, oh, also type, excuse me. So I'm pulling from here. So education is called @education, type is going to be called @type, etc. So I'm pulling from these columns, and what's going to happen is this. When I hover over the accountant, as an example, in the actual scatter plot, this information right here will pop up. This information right here that I'm putting down here in the tooltips. Now, the rest of the code down here is all the same, except over here I have this argument tooltips, and I put my object tooltips right here. And then, of course, this down here is the same, except my source now is called source. That's a slight change, but everything else is exactly the same. So I'm not going to go through everything step by step. Instead, we're going to enjoy the handiwork here. All right, so let me just zoom in for you. So now you can see that when I hover over an actual individual point, you can clearly see that I get the information about that particular individual there. So this person has an education of 72 with an income of 29, and their position is WC, or white collar. I hover over this person, same thing. And over here, I can turn this off, I believe, if I want, and I can turn it back on. You can see that. And so again, this allows more interaction with the plot for whoever may be desiring to use it. So again, you can see the power and the advantage of what Bokeh is able to do. And you know, only a few lines of code, you can have a very, very clean plot that can bring a lot of insight for individuals. And of course, you know, we can add titles here and all kind of things like that to make it more professional looking, but we're focusing on the functionality right now. So that pretty much concludes this particular video. Let's review what we talked about and wrap it up. So in this video, we learned how to manipulate and to include tools and tooltips when you are using Bokeh, of course, with Python. And so first we looked at a default graph, just what it looks like without changing anything. And then we had our modified graph where we changed the tools that were available. And what I mean by tools, those little icons that are to the right of the graph. After we reviewed how to do that, we then went into our hover tool where you can actually increase the interaction by being able to hover over different data points and get insights about that particular data point. So I want to thank you so much for listening and watching. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. You have a good day and take care.